Captain Jake Morrison stared at the main screen of his ship. 3 months ago, he had left Earth with dreams of finding new worlds. Now, he was looking at something that would change everything for humanity forever. The alien ships were huge. Each one was 3 times bigger than his exploration vessel, the UE's Discovery. They moved in perfect formation, like dancers who had practiced the same steps for years. Their hulls were dark green with gold patterns that seemed to glow in the starlight. "Captain, they're scanning us," said Lieutenant Tom Hayes from his position at the communications station. His voice was steady, but Jake could hear the fear underneath. This was first contact with an alien race, and none of them knew what to expect. Dr. Lisa Grant moved closer to Jake's command chair. She was the ship's expert on alien life, though until this moment, she had only studied theories and possibilities. Her hand shook slightly as she held her datapad. "Their technology is far beyond ours," she whispered. "The energy readings from their ships are incredible. We're like children playing with toys compared to them." Jake nodded. He had seen the same readings. Earth's best scientists had worked for 50 years to build the Discovery and its quantum drive. These aliens made it look like a paper airplane. A new voice filled the bridge. It spoke in perfect English, though the accent was strange, like someone talking with a mouth full of rocks. "Primitive vessel, you will stop your movement and prepare for inspection." Jake looked at his crew. They were all young, all brave, all completely unprepared for this moment. He stood up and straightened his uniform. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earthship Discovery. We come in peace and wish to establish friendly contact with your people." There was a long pause. Then the alien voice returned, and Jake could hear something that sounded like laughter. "Friendly contact. How amusing. You may approach our command ship, primitive ones. Do not make any sudden movements, or we will destroy you." The next hour passed like a dream. Jake, Lisa, and 2 security officers took a small shuttle to the alien command ship. The docking bay was enormous, filled with machines and creatures they had never imagined. The aliens themselves were tall and covered in green scales. They walked on 2 legs like humans, but their heads were longer, with yellow eyes that never seemed to blink. When they spoke, Jake could see rows of sharp teeth. The alien commander introduced himself as Vextar of the Zephyrian Empire. He looked down at the humans like a teacher might look at very young students. "So, you are the species that calls itself human," Vextar said, walking around the small group. "We detected your crude signals from your home world some time ago. We wondered when you might develop space travel. Your progress has been adequate." Lisa stepped forward. "We're honored to meet you, Commander Vextar. We hope this can be the beginning of a long friendship between our peoples." Vextar made that rock-grinding laugh again. "Friendship. You speak of friendship when you do not even understand your place in the galaxy. There are 5 great powers that rule among the stars. The Zephyrian Empire is one of them. You humans are barely worth cataloging." He gestured to one of his officers, who brought forward a small device. "This contains basic star charts of your local area. It will show you which systems are safe for your kind to explore. Do not venture beyond these boundaries. The galaxy is a dangerous place for primitive species." Jake felt anger rising in his chest, but he forced himself to stay calm. These aliens could destroy Earth with ease. Now was not the time for pride. "We appreciate the gift," he said. "Perhaps in time, we can prove ourselves worthy of greater trust." "Perhaps," Vextar said, but his tone suggested he doubted it very much. "Your species shows some interesting qualities. You adapt well to new situations, and you seem less afraid than most primitives we encounter. But adaptation means a little. Without power, and you have no power." The meeting ended quickly after that. The humans returned to their ship with the star charts and a head full of new questions. As they traveled back to Earth, Lisa spent hours studying the data they had collected. "Jake, look at this," she said one evening as they sat in the ship's mess hall. "I've been analyzing their language patterns and behavior. They're incredibly advanced, but they're also incredibly rigid. Everything they do follows exact patterns. They can't seem to think outside their established ways." Jake looked at the notes she had made. "What does that mean for us?" "I'm not sure yet, but I think they made a mistake today. They looked at our technology and decided we were primitive. They never really looked at us." Back on Earth, Director Paul Chun sat in his office reading the mission reports. Jake's team had returned with more information about alien technology and culture than anyone had dared hope for. But Paul was thinking about something else. He called his assistant into the office. "Schedule a meeting with the Global Defense Council," he said. "We need to start preparing." "Preparing for what, sir?" Paul looked out his window at the busy streets of New Geneva. Millions of people going about their daily lives, unaware that everything had just changed. "The Zephyrians think we're primitive," he said quietly. "They think we're weak. They gave us star charts like they were giving candy to children. They told us to stay in our corner and play quietly." His assistant waited for him to continue. "They made the same mistake that many powerful people make. They confuse technology with intelligence. They think because our ships are slower and our weapons are weaker, that makes us less dangerous." Paul smiled, but it was not a kind smile. They're about to learn that being underestimated is the greatest advantage anyone can have. As Earth began to prepare for its future among the stars, the Zephyrian fleet continued its patrol of the outer systems. Commander Vextar filed his report on the human encounter, marking them as a minor species of limited potential. He never imagined that this single meeting would eventually lead to the fall of his empire and the rise of humanity as the galaxy's greatest power. But that story was still years in the future, waiting to unfold among the stars. 15 years had passed since the first meeting with the Zephyrians. Colonel Amy Rodriguez stood on the observation deck of the space station, hidden in the asteroid belt of the Kepler system. From here, she could see 3 different alien trade routes crossing through space like invisible highways. Amy was not supposed to be here. According to official records, she was leading a mining survey in a distant system. In reality, she was building something that would change the balance of power in the galaxy. She was creating humanity's first deep space spy network. "Colonel, we have another contact," said Sergeant Bill Murphy from the communications room. "It's the Drakmari ship we've been tracking." Amy walked quickly to the control center. On the main screen, she could see a strange vessel that looked more like a living creature than a machine. The Drakmari were one of the 5 great powers in the galaxy, beings who could read minds and speak without words. Most species feared them, but Amy had learned something interesting about the Drakmari. For all their mental powers, they were terrible at understanding emotions. They could read thoughts, but they could not understand why someone felt happy, or sad, or angry. This made them easy to fool if you knew how to control your feelings. "Send the standard merchant signal," Amy ordered. "Tell them we're carrying rare metals from the outer rim." The Drakmari ship approached slowly. Amy felt a strange pressure in her mind as they scanned her thoughts. She focused on remembering her cover story while hiding her real emotions deep inside. It was a skill she had learned from Dr. Helen Moore, who had spent years studying alien psychology. After a few minutes, the pressure stopped. The Drakmari ship moved away without challenge. Amy smiled. Another successful deception. The aliens still saw humans as simple traders, nothing more. 3 systems away, engineer Tony Clark was working in his secret laboratory on the planet New Boston. The room was filled with pieces of alien technology from a dozen different species. Tony had spent years collecting these items through trades, salvage operations, and careful theft. "Computer, run test sequence 47, Tony said as he adjusted a strange crystal device. The machine hummed to life. It was a combination of Zephyrian power cells, Velthari crystal technology, and Corvan computer systems. No alien species had ever tried to mix technologies from different races. They considered it impossible and insulting to their own superior designs. But Tony had discovered something amazing. Each alien race had developed incredible technology, but they had all specialized in different areas. The Zephyrians were masters of energy weapons. The Velthari could grow crystal computers that thought faster than any machine. The Corvan built artificial minds that never made mistakes. When Tony combined these technologies, the results were beyond anything any single species could achieve. His hybrid engines could outrun Zephyrian warships. His mixed crystal computers could solve problems that stumped the greatest Velthari scientists. The test results appeared on his screen. Perfect. The new shield system would protect human ships from any known alien weapon. Tony smiled and began working on his next project. The aliens thought humans were primitive because their technology was simple. They never realized that simple could be better when it was smart. On the research station orbiting Proxima Centauri, Dr. Helen Moore was conducting her most important experiment yet. She sat across from Kethver, a young Zephyrian who had been exiled from his empire for asking too many questions. "Tell me about fear," Helen said gently. Kethver's scales changed color slightly, showing confusion. "Fear is weakness. The Empire teaches that fear must be destroyed. But you felt fear when they exiled you," Helen observed. "Yes," Kethver admitted. "I do not understand this. Fear should not exist in a proper Zephyrian mind." Helen made notes on her datapad. This was exactly what she had suspected. The alien races were emotionally crippled compared to humans. They had evolved to be specialists, but specialization came with a price. They could not handle complex emotions or unexpected situations. The Zephyrians were built for conquest and had no room for doubt or flexibility. The Velthari were creatures of pure logic who became paralyzed when faced with illogical problems. The Corvan were so focused on efficiency that they could not understand art or creativity. The Drakmari could read minds, but not hearts. Only humans seemed able to feel the full range of emotions and still function. Only humans could adapt their thinking to work with completely different types of minds. This was why aliens were starting to hire humans as negotiators and mediators. They needed someone who could understand all sides of a problem. What the aliens did not realize was that every human negotiator was also a spy, learning their deepest secrets and greatest weaknesses. 5 light years away, Captain Nicole Adams commanded a small fleet of human cargo ships traveling through Nethys collective space. The Nethys were gas-based life forms who lived in the atmospheres of giant planets. Their ships looked like floating cities made of metal and crystal. "Captain, the Nethys Patrol wants to inspect our cargo," reported Navigator Pete Johnson. "Standard procedure," Nicole replied calmly. "Let them board." The Nethys inspector was a cloud of glowing gas contained in a mechanical suit. It floated through Nicole's ship, checking the manifest and scanning the cargo holds. Everything appeared normal. Rare metals, food supplies, and manufactured goods from Earth. What the inspector could not detect were the hidden sensors throughout Nicole's ship, recording every detail of Nethys technology. The scanning devices in the cargo holds were mapping the inspector's suit and analyzing its chemical composition. Even the conversation was being studied to learn more about Nethys society and military capabilities. "Your cargo is acceptable," the inspector announced before leaving. "Thank you for your courtesy," Nicole replied with a smile. As soon as the Nethys patrol ship was gone, Nicole activated her secret communication system. "This is Adams reporting. We have complete scans of their new patrol ships. Transmitting data now." Back on Earth, Director Paul Chun received reports like this every day. His network of spies, traders, and diplomats was growing larger and more sophisticated. Every human ship that left Earth carried hidden sensors and secret missions. Every human diplomat gathered intelligence along with trade agreements. The alien empires were so convinced of their superiority that they never suspected the primitive humans were systematically learning everything about them. They saw human curiosity as amusing rather than dangerous. They answered questions freely, thinking humans were too simple to use the information effectively. Paul stood in his office, looking at a holographic map of the galaxy. Red dots marked the locations of human colonies and outposts. Blue lines showed trade routes and spy networks. Green areas indicated systems where humans had established secret bases or intelligence operations. 15 years ago, humanity had controlled one small system around Earth. Now they had a presence in over 200 systems across the galaxy. And the alien empires still thought of them as harmless traders and useful mediators. "Sir, we have a priority communication from Colonel Rodriguez," announced his aide. Paul activated the secure channel. Amy's face appeared on the screen, and she was smiling. "Paul, you need to see this. We've intercepted communications between the Velthari and the Corvin Assembly. They're planning something big in the Helix Nebula. Mining rights dispute that could turn into a war." Paul felt his pulse quicken. This was the opportunity they had been waiting for. When great powers fought each other, smaller powers could rise. "Send me everything you have," he ordered. "And Amy, start moving our assets into position. If there's going to be a war, humanity needs to be ready to benefit from it." As the communication ended, Paul looked again at his galactic map. Soon, very soon, the galaxy would learn that underestimating humanity had been the greatest mistake the alien empires could have made. The war began with a single mining ship. The Velthari crystal vessel was harvesting rare minerals in the Helix Nebula when a Corvin assembly fleet arrived. Both sides claimed ownership of the system. Neither side was willing to back down. General Steve Parker watched the first battle reports from his command center on Luna Base. The space above Earth's moon was now filled with human warships, though they were still disguised as defensive patrol craft. "General, the Velthari just destroyed 3 Corvin mining platforms," reported Major Kate Davis from the intelligence station. "The Corvin are mobilizing their entire 7th Fleet in response." Steve nodded grimly. The war humanity had been expecting for years was finally starting. But this was bigger than anyone had predicted. Within hours, the conflict was spreading across multiple systems. "Sir, we're getting reports from all sectors," announced Commander Rick Brown. "The Zephyrians are sending ships to support the Velthari. The Nethys Collective is backing the Corvin. It's becoming a galaxy-wide war." Steve activated his communication system. "This is General Parker to all human commanders. Operation Silent Watch is now active. Begin Phase 1 intelligence gathering immediately." Across the galaxy, human ships moved into position. They carried medical supplies and humanitarian aid, offering to help war refugees. The alien empires welcomed this assistance. After all, humans were peaceful traders who posed no threat to anyone. Captain Nicole Ames commanded the relief ship U.S. Mercy as it approached a battle zone in the Vega system. The space around the 4th planet was filled with wreckage from a massive fleet battle. Thousands of alien survivors floated in escape pods. "Captain, we have Velthari survivors requesting rescue," said Lieutenant Joe Martinez from the scanning station. "Bring them aboard," Nicole ordered. Medical teams to the docking bays. As her crew worked to save alien lives, Nicole's ship was secretly recording everything. Every piece of wreckage was scanned and analyzed. Every survivor was carefully questioned about their ships and weapons. Every tactical mistake made by both sides was documented and transmitted back to Earth. The Volthari refugees were grateful for human help. They spoke freely about their military capabilities, never suspecting that their rescuers were gathering intelligence that would one day be used against them. 3 systems away, Dr. Kevin Wright was having the time of his life. The abandoned Corvin research station orbiting the gas giant in the Ross system had been evacuated when the war started. Now Kevin and his team had complete access to some of the most advanced technology in the galaxy. "This is incredible," Kevin said as he examined a Corvin artificial intelligence core. "Their computer systems are amazingly powerful, but they have a fatal flaw. They can only think in straight lines. If you present them with a problem that requires creative solutions, they shut down." His assistant, Dr. Nancy Foster, was working on a captured Velthari weapon. The crystal technology is the same way. It's incredibly efficient, but it can't adapt. If you change the frequency of your shields by just 2%, their weapons become useless. Kevin smiled. Every alien empire had the same problem. They were too specialized. They had spent thousands of years perfecting their particular approach to technology and warfare. This made them incredibly powerful in their chosen areas, but it also made them predictable and inflexible. Humans had a different approach. They were generalists who borrowed ideas from everyone and adapted them to new situations. This made human technology less impressive than alien technology, but it also made it much more versatile. The war raged for 3 years. Entire star systems were destroyed. Trade routes collapsed. Billions of aliens died or became refugees. The great empires exhausted their resources fighting each other while humanity quietly grew stronger. President Maria Santos stood before the United Earth Assembly, addressing representatives from all human colonies. Behind her, a holographic display showed the current state of the galaxy. Large areas were marked in red, indicating war zones or abandoned systems. "My fellow humans," Maria began, "for 3 years we have watched the galaxy tear itself apart. We have provided humanitarian aid and medical assistance to all sides. We have remained neutral in this conflict, as befits a peaceful species." The assembly members listened carefully. They knew this speech was important. "But neutrality has its limits," Maria continued. "The great empires are destroying the galaxy with their war. Trade has collapsed. Entire species are facing extinction. The time has come for someone to step forward and restore peace." She paused, looking around the room. "That someone is us. Humanity will offer to mediate this conflict. We will work to bring peace to the galaxy. And if necessary, we will enforce that peace." The assembly voted unanimously to support the president's proposal. Within days, human diplomatic ships were traveling to all 5 empire capitals, offering to host peace negotiations. The alien leaders were skeptical but desperate. The war was destroying them all. If the primitive humans wanted to try to broker peace, why not let them? What could it hurt? Admiral Ben Clark, General Parker's son, prepared for the most important mission in human history. His fleet of 50 ships was disguised as a diplomatic escort, but each vessel carried the most advanced weapons humanity had ever built. "Admiral, all ships report ready," announced Captain Linda Hayes from the communication station. Ben looked at the tactical display. His hybrid human-alien technology gave him advantages that no pure alien fleet could match. His ships were faster than Zephyrian vessels, tougher than Corvin machines, and more adaptable than Velthari crystal ships. "Set course for the Kepler system," he ordered. "It's time to show the galaxy what humans can really do." The peace conference was scheduled to take place at Kepler Station, a neutral trading post in an unclaimed space. Representatives from all 5 empires would attend, along with human mediators. The galaxy held its breath, hoping for an end to the devastating war. But Commander Vextar of the Zephyrian Empire had other plans. The same alien who had dismissed humanity 28 years earlier was now a high-ranking military commander. He had convinced his superiors that the peace conference was a perfect opportunity to demonstrate Zephyrian superiority. "We will attend this farce," Vextar announced to his fleet commanders. "But when the negotiations fail, as they surely will, we will destroy the station and everyone on it. The galaxy will see that only Zephyrian strength can bring order to the chaos." His fleet of 200 warships, the pride of the Zephyrian military, began moving toward Kepler Station. They expected to face perhaps a few dozen human patrol ships and some alien diplomatic vessels. They had no idea that Admiral Clark's fleet had spent 3 years studying every aspect of Zephyrian military doctrine. They did not know that human engineers had built specific countermeasures for every Zephyrian weapon system. They could not imagine that the primitive species they had dismissed so long ago was about to hand them the most devastating defeat in their empire's history. As the 2 fleets approached Kepler Station, the galaxy was about to witness the birth of a new superpower. The age of the great alien empires was ending. The age of humanity was about to begin. The Battle of Kepler Station would be remembered as the moment everything changed. The moment when the galaxy learned that being underestimated by your enemies was the greatest advantage anyone could have. The Battle of Kepler Station lasted exactly 47 minutes. When it was over, the Zephyrian Grand Fleet was nothing but floating debris and escape pods. Admiral Ben Clark had not lost a single ship. Commander Vextar sat in his escape pod, watching his empire's greatest warships burn in the darkness of space. His mind could not accept what had happened. 200 of the most advanced warships in the galaxy had been utterly destroyed by 50 human vessels. "How?" he whispered to himself. "How is this possible?" The answer was simple, though Vextar would never understand it. For 3 years, human intelligence officers had studied every Zephyrian battle. They had learned that Zephyrian tactics never changed. The same formations, the same attack patterns, the same responses to every situation. Admiral Clark had known exactly what the Zephyrians would do before they did it. His ships had been positioned perfectly, their weapons calibrated to exploit every weakness in Zephyrian armor and shields. The battle had been won before the first shot was fired. News of the victory spread across the galaxy faster than light. Within hours, every species knew that the humans had completely destroyed the Zephyrian Grand Fleet. The primitive traders had revealed themselves to be something far more dangerous. Dr. Susan Lee stood in the reception hall of New Geneva, Earth's capital city, welcoming the first alien delegates to seek peace with humanity. These were not the proud empire representatives who had dismissed humans for decades. These were desperate survivors looking for protection from the chaos consuming the galaxy. "Ambassador Velkarn," Susan said, greeting a Velthari diplomat whose crystal body flickered with nervous energy. "We are honored by your visit." "Dr. Lee," the alien replied, his voice resonating like wind chimes. "My people have heard of your victory at Kepler Station. We wish to discuss terms for joining your federation." Susan smiled warmly. "There are no terms. There are only principles. We believe all species have value. We believe cooperation is stronger than conquest. We believe the galaxy is better when we work together." The Velthari diplomat's crystalline form brightened with hope. "You would accept us as equals, even though we fought against your allies?" "The war is over," Susan said simply. "What matters now is building a better future." This conversation was repeated hundreds of times across human space. Species that had once been enemies were now applying to join the Human Federation. The old Empire system of conquest and domination was being replaced by something new. Commander Rick Torres stood on the bridge of the UHS Unity, the first starship to have a truly mixed crew. Humans worked alongside Velthari, former Corvin, and even some Zephyrians who had abandoned their empire. The ship had become a symbol of humanity's different approach to galactic leadership. Captain Torres, said his first officer, a Velthari named Sylvan. We're approaching the former Drakmari border. The psychic barriers are still active. Rick nodded. The Drakmari hegemony had collapsed completely during the war. Their ability to read minds had made them paranoid and unable to trust anyone. When the fighting started, they had sealed themselves behind psychic barriers and refused all contact with the outside galaxy. Open a channel, Rick ordered. Let's see if we can talk to them. The response came immediately, not through the ship's communication system, but directly into the minds of everyone on the bridge. The alien thoughts felt cold and angry. Stay away, mind-blind creatures. We want nothing to do with your false peace. But Rick had learned something important from Dr. Helen Moore's research. The Drakmari could read thoughts, but they could not understand emotions. They saw Rick's determination and mistook it for aggression. They sensed his crew's loyalty and thought it was fear. We're not here to threaten you, Rick said aloud, knowing the Drakmari would read his thoughts. He focused on memories of cooperation and friendship, of different species working together successfully. The psychic presence in his mind wavered, confused by thoughts it had never encountered before. You think of unity without conquest, Drakmari voice said, sounding puzzled. This is not possible. The strong must dominate the weak. This is the natural order. No, Rick replied, still broadcasting his thoughts. The smart must help the struggling. The experienced must teach. The inexperienced. The strong must protect the weak. This is the human way. There was a long silence. Then the psychic barriers around the Drakmari systems began to weaken. Within days, the first Drakmari ships in 50 years emerged from their isolation to meet with human diplomats. Chief Intelligence Officer Kate Murphy sat in her office on Luna Base, reading reports from across the galaxy. The transformation was happening faster than anyone had expected. The old empires were collapsing, but instead of chaos, there was order. Instead of conquest, there was cooperation. Kate, you need to see this, said her assistant, bringing in a datapad. It's a message from the Corvin Assembly. They want to surrender all their remaining military assets to the Human Federation. Kate raised an eyebrow. Surrender? We're not even at war with them. That's just it. They're not surrendering because they're afraid of being conquered. They're surrendering because they want to join us. They've seen what we're building, and they want to be part of it. Kate looked at the galactic map on her wall. 6 months ago, it had been divided into 5 different colored sections, each representing a major empire. Now, more than half the galaxy was colored blue, the symbol of the Human Federation. Send a message to President Santos, Kate said. Tell her we're going to need more diplomats. On the planet New Harmony, a former Zephian colony that had voted to join the Human Federation, Dr. Rachel Kim was overseeing the construction of the first multi-species city. Humans, Velthari, Corvin, and even some Zephyrians worked side by side, building something that had never existed before. Dr. Kim called out engineer Bill Ross, a human who was working with a team of Corvin technicians. You need to see what we've accomplished. Rachel walked over to where the mixed team was working on a new type of building. It used Velthari, crystal growing techniques, Corvin precision engineering, and human adaptive design. The result was a structure that was more beautiful and functional than anything any single species could have created alone. This is just the beginning, Bill said excitedly. When we combine our different approaches, we can solve problems that seemed impossible before." Rachel smiled. This was exactly what humanity had hoped for. Not the conquest of other species, but cooperation with them. Not the dominance of human ideas, but the combination of the best ideas from everyone. Meanwhile, on the edges of known space, Admiral Lisa Johnson was leading the Federation exploration fleet into uncharted territory. Her ships were discovering new worlds and new species, but they were also finding something else. "Admiral, we've found another one," reported Captain Mike Taylor from the science vessel UHS Discovery. "It's the same pattern as the others." Lisa looked at the data on her screen. Another dead world, another extinct civilization. In the past year, her fleet had found dozens of worlds that had once been home to advanced species. All of them were now lifeless, their civilizations destroyed by war or internal collapse. "How long ago?" Lisa asked. "The computer estimates about 10,000 years, Mike replied. "Same as all the others. It's like there is a great dying across this entire region of space." Lisa felt a chill. The galaxy was littered with the remains of dead civilizations. Species that had once been as advanced as the current empires, maybe more so. All of them had fallen, leaving only ruins and silence. "Continue the survey," she ordered, "but stay alert. Whatever destroyed these civilizations might still be out there." Unknown to Lisa, her ships were being watched. Ancient eyes studied the human vessels, noting their mixed crews and peaceful intentions. The Watchers had seen many species rise and fall over the millennia. They had learned to recognize the signs of a civilization's potential. Most species followed the same pattern. They developed advanced technology, conquered their neighbors, and eventually destroyed themselves through war or arrogance. But these humans were different. They were builders, not destroyers. They saw cooperation, not conquest. The ancient Watchers began to prepare for a test. Soon, they would reveal themselves to judge whether humanity was worthy of the responsibility they had claimed. The galaxy had been waiting for someone who could break the cycle of rise and fall. Perhaps, after all these years, that someone had finally arrived. The age of human dominance was beginning, but with it came challenges that would test everything humanity believed about peace, cooperation, and the future of galactic civilization. 50 years after first contact, Chancellor Dan Foster stood in the Grand Assembly Hall on New Geneva. Representatives from over 300 species filled the chamber, all of them part of the Human Federation. What had started as a small alliance had become the largest peaceful civilization in galactic history. "My fellow beings," Dan began, addressing the vast crowd. "Today marks the 50th anniversary of humanity's first meeting with the Zephyrians. On that day, we were told we were primitive and weak. Today, we govern a federation that spans half the galaxy." The assembly erupted in applause. Humans, Volthari, Corvin, Drakmari, and dozens of other species celebrated together. Former enemies had become close allies. Former empires had become member worlds of a greater community. But Dan's expression was serious as he continued. "However, we face a new challenge. Our exploration fleets have discovered evidence of an ancient presence in the Outer Rim. We are no longer alone in the deep reaches of space." On the edge of the galaxy, Admiral Lisa Johnson's fleet had made contact with something beyond their understanding. The beings called themselves the Architects, and they claimed to be older than any known civilization. Their ships were massive, structures that seemed to bend space and time around them. "Admiral Johnson," the voice spoke directly into her mind, clear and powerful. "We have watched your species for 50 years. We have seen your rise to power. Now we must judge whether you are worthy of it." Lisa stood on the bridge of her flagship, the UHS Horizon, surrounded by her mixed species crew. The alien presence felt overwhelming, like standing next to a mountain that could think. "We welcome your judgment," Lisa replied carefully. "But we must ask, who are you to judge us?" "We are the architects," the voice responded. "We have guided galactic civilization for millions of years. We have watched countless species rise to power. We have seen them all fall to the same weaknesses." Images flooded Lisa's mind. Ancient civilizations of incredible power and beauty, all reduced to dust and ruins. Species after species had achieved galactic dominance, only to destroy themselves. Through war, pride, or the corruption that came with absolute power. Every dominant species follows the same pattern, the architect continued. They conquer through strength. They rule through fear. They fall through arrogance. You humans claim to be different. We shall see. The test began immediately. Across the galaxy, worlds that had been peaceful for decades suddenly erupted in conflict. Old hatreds between species were mysteriously rekindled. Trade disputes became violent confrontations. It was as if someone was deliberately trying to restart the galactic wars. President Mark Taylor sat in the emergency session of the Federation Council. Reports were coming in from dozens of systems. Fighting had broken out between Velthari and former Zephian colonies. Corvan settlements were under attack by unknown raiders. Even the peaceful Drakmari were reporting hostile incidents. "This is clearly not a natural occurrence," said Dr. Rachel Kim, who had become the Federation's chief scientist. "The pattern is too organized, too coordinated. Someone is deliberately causing these conflicts. The question is why," said General Amy Rodriguez, now the Federation's supreme military commander. "And what do they hope to accomplish?" Mark knew the answer, though he did not want to admit it. "They're testing us. Someone wants to see how we handle a crisis, whether we respond with force or wisdom." The easy solution would have been to send the Federation military to crush the rebellions and restore order by force. Every previous galactic power would have done exactly that. But Mark remembered the lessons of human history and the principles that had built their Federation. "We will not use military force except to protect innocent lives," he announced to the Council. "Instead, we will send negotiators, mediators, and aid workers. We will treat this as a humanitarian crisis, not a military one." Commander Rick Torres was among the first to respond to the crisis. His ship, the Unity, traveled to the Altair system, where Velthari and Zephyrian colonists were fighting over water rights. When he arrived, he found both sides armed and ready for war. "Commander Torres," said the Velthari leader, his crystal body pulsing with angry red light, "these Zephyrians have stolen our water supplies. We demand Federation justice." "The water belongs to all colonists," replied the Zephyrian spokesman, his scales dark with rage. "These crystal beings seek to hoard resources that should be shared." Rick listened to both sides, remembering his training in alien psychology. Both species were telling the truth as they saw it, but they were also both missing important facts. The Velthari needed more water than most species because of their crystal biology. The Zephyrians had been rationing water because they feared shortages. "What if we could increase the water supply for everyone?" Rick suggested. "Our engineers have developed new extraction techniques that could triple the output of your current wells." Within days, human engineers working with both Velthari and Zephyrian specialists had solved the water crisis. Not only was there enough water for everyone, but the improved extraction methods had created jobs for both communities. Similar solutions were found across the galaxy. Every conflict was met with cooperation instead of conquest. Every problem was solved through innovation instead of intimidation. The Federation's response to the crisis demonstrated that their principles were not just words, but genuine beliefs that guided their actions. The architect's voice returned to Admiral Lisa Johnson as the last of the artificial conflicts were resolved. Interesting. Your species continues to surprise us. How so? Lisa asked. Every other dominant species we have tested responded to crisis with force. They sent armies to crush rebellions and fleets to impose order. You sent teachers, engineers, and mediators. You solve problems instead of destroying those who caused them. Lisa felt a moment of pride, but the architect's next words sobered her. However, your greatest test still awaits. Power corrupts all species eventually. How will humanity handle the responsibility of galactic leadership when the easy solutions are gone? When you must make choices between competing goods? When your principles conflict with your survival? The architect's massive ships began to withdraw to the edge of known space. We will continue to watch, humans. You have earned the right to lead for now. But remember, every species that came before you believed they were different. Every species thought they had found a better way. We shall see if you can avoid the fate that claimed them all. As the alien vessels disappeared into the darkness, between stars, Lisa transmitted their final message to Earth. Chancellor Foster read it aloud to the Federation Assembly. The architects have judged us worthy to lead the galaxy, but they have also warned us of the dangers ahead. They will continue to watch us, waiting to see if we can avoid the corruption that destroyed every previous galactic power. The Assembly was quiet for a long moment. Then, a young human delegate stood up. Chancellor, what do we do now? Dan smiled, remembering the words of the first human leaders who had faced the challenge of galactic expansion. We do what humans have always done. We adapt, we learn, and we help each other. We remember that power is not a privilege to be enjoyed, but a responsibility to be carried. And we never forget that our strength comes not from what we can destroy, but from what we can build together. The galaxy had a new superpower, but unlike all those that came before, this one understood that true power came from lifting others up, not tearing them down. The age of conquest was over. The age of cooperation had begun. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, ancient eyes continued to watch, hoping that this time, perhaps this once, a species might prove worthy of the trust the galaxy had placed in them. The future was unwritten, but for the first time in millions of years, it was full of hope.